March 24th, 2021, and I'm enjoying another beautiful day here in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Temperatures today are, I don't know, around 70 to 72 degrees, and the sun is under a couple of clouds right now, but the sun is coming out more this afternoon. So right now it feels just perfect out here. They are doing some lawn trimming. I'm at a different location. As you can see, there's like a log cabin behind me. Reminds me very much of Little House on the Prairie, where I used to watch when I was a kid, and actually got to visit last July up in Walnut Grove, Minnesota. So reminds me of my childhood watching those shows and people living off the land and so forth. I grew up on a older home in northern Indiana, and we had a woods and we had a creek and we had a pond, and used to camp out in the woods with my brothers. So anyway, I enjoy cool backdrops, and hopefully the people trimming the grass will stay farther away than closer because they didn't start up until about 5-6 minutes ago. So anyway, that's the challenges that you have with doing lives, is that you never know what you're going to get. So anyway, it's a beautiful day here. Added some more to the schedule. A 2021 Breakthrough Tour is growing by leaps and bounds this year. More and more people are getting healed, inner healed and delivered from their past wounds, and having much more joy and laughter and fun in their lives and their relationships. Doing a lot of personal sessions for people every week. Again, I'm doing 7 to 8 a week. Today, hello Jane Dillenbach Watt. She is from near the Atlanta area and goes back and forth between here and North Carolina because her husband has work between here and there. And in fact, last I saw her was on October the 3rd last year when I did the Atlanta session in Atlanta. So the breakthrough session in Atlanta. Hello to Cindy Andrade from Southern California. So, and in fact, it's ironic, Jane, that you're on, because I am coming back to do another session at the Atlanta Marriott Perimeter Center. This just got scheduled minutes ago on May the 1st. And so excited about that. Had a good turnout last time we did this back October 3rd. We also did it again in January I think 16th. So this will be my third time in about 6 months. And it's interesting because, you know, I had never done ministry in the entire state of Georgia, corporate deliverance. I had not done it the whole last 4 years. And so I'm starting to make up for lost time, I guess. And there's lots of people in Atlanta that need delivered. Lots of people in Georgia, lots of people all over the United States and all over the world. So God's keeping me busy. Yeah, in fact, today I've already done a session with a lady from Canada, doing one with a lady from Australia. Actually, no, her son. Did the lady last night, which was today in Australia. And now we're doing it tomorrow in Australia for her son later today. And then I'm doing with another guy from Dallas. So it's cool. It's interesting because we do these corporate sessions and we see people that get the gist of what we're saying, where you have to forgive if you truly want to be freed. If you don't forgive people that have hurt you deeply in the past, then you're going to end up being tormented by negative thoughts, which are largely planted there, given to you by demonic spirits. And they have legal rights because you've got anger, you've got bitterness. And a lot of people say, well, you have no idea what they did to me. And I'm like, nope, I never walked in your shoes, but you never walked in mine. You never had any idea what I've been through. And we've all been through stuff. We've all been through wounding. And when you get healed, the only way you can get healed is to forgive truly, just like Jesus did when he was dying on the cross. And the last words he said was, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. So it's important that we follow the Father, we follow Jesus and what he said to do. And if you have a very hard time truly forgiving people, then you may need a personal session. And the personal sessions would go back from the time that you were in the womb to the time you were born, to all the different wounds that happened to you along the road. And then we have Jesus come to give you some words to understand why things happen to you. Hurting people hurt us. People that aren't delivered from demons hurt us. Our moms and dads will say things and do things that can hurt us deeply. And if we don't forgive, then we're going to walk around with a lot of demonic thoughts in our head that will cause us to fight and strive and argue, not get along with our spouse and or children, and oftentimes infiltrate our own children with the same demonic spirits that are tormenting us, that tormented our mom or our dad, that tormented our grandpa and grandma, and so forth and so on. So we can't just say, well, that's just the way that they are. Well, that's the way that they are because they're tormented, and that's the way that they are because they've not been healed yet. So, all right, so a breakthrough tour for 2021. This coming Saturday, I'll be in Savannah, Georgia at the Marriott Savannah Riverfront. That's again this Saturday at 7 p.m. Beautiful property, so come on out for that. April the 4th, Easter Sunday, will be at Cooter's Place in Luray, Virginia. And that's on a Sunday morning, again, Easter. Looking forward to that. That's about an 8-hour drive from Atlanta. And then May the 1st, just got this scheduled, talked about it already, the Atlanta Marriott Perimeter Center on the north side of Atlanta, Georgia at 7 p.m. on a Saturday night, May the 1st, so come on out for that. You Atlantans and beyond. Again, like in Chattanooga, we had people from Atlanta that drove up, which is about a 2-hour drive to Chattanooga. We had somebody that drove 3.5 hours from Kentucky down to Chattanooga. We had somebody that drove from Huntsville, Alabama. People that came, of course, from Chattanooga. Hop, skip, and a jump for them. So people are serious. They want to see their lives full of joy and full of the Lord, and not just going to church and being miserable and angry and bitter and having their relationships and their marriages be horrible. And who wants to be miserably married? It takes 2 people to make the marriage. You can have one person that refuses to be healed and delivered and wants to be angry and bitter and blame everything on their spouse, and they can be filled with demons and have all these negative thoughts that are going to try to say horrible words to their spouse and cause strife and fighting and arguing, causing the spouse to become sicker and sicker and sicker to the point of where they can die because of the treatment, the emotional and verbal abuse that comes upon them. So we want to get them healed and delivered from all of that so they can enjoy their lives and have fun. And that's what happens. When I got delivered, started having fun, started enjoying my life. I didn't strive about anything, didn't worry about anything, enjoyed things, and didn't complain and speak negative. And then I noticed however many other people around me that were struggling and that were treating people badly. And then the Lord had me go through a situation where I had a stepchild, and I was able, actually a couple stepchildren, and I was able to see some dynamics and the pains that they had, and how the Lord showed me that I needed to love them like Christ, and I had to actually walk in spiritual maturity. And if they didn't behave in the ways that they should, then I needed to cut them some slack. I needed to give them some grace. I needed to love them like Christ. So, all right, let me go on. May 22nd, May 23rd, Hot Springs, Arkansas, at the Highland Street Revival Church. May 29th and May 30th, I'll be in Merkel, Texas, at the Fountain Gate Merkel Church, which is west of Dallas. June the 6th in Anaheim, California, Orange County, at the Ecclesia Global Church with Pastor Darren Brown. And then June 12th and June 13th in Bernie, California, which is in Northern California, east of Redding, at a home group, Anna Denny. And then June 25th to the 27th in Seattle, Washington, at the Point Church, Pastor Mike Zachman. And I'll probably go to Portland, or at least somewhere in Oregon, between California and Washington, since I'll be driving right through Portland on the way there. And then July 9th and 10th in Billings, Montana, Everlasting Covenant Congregation, which is a Messianic congregation. I've been there a couple of times. And then I will be scheduling something probably in Colorado, in Omaha, in Minneapolis, Chicago for sure, since Chicago has the greatest turnouts of any city in America, which blows my mind because I never would have guessed that. I've been there twice. We had over 70 people the first time, and then the second time we only had a couple weeks notice, and it was like 55 people. So people from Wheaton College, kids from Wheaton College that came out, and people from all over the place. So, so anyway, things are growing and growing rapidly. We've got more people that are getting certified every month, and it's amazing watching this growth, keeping up with it. You know, we need more people that have been certified under Restorative Freedom to help more people get set free and delivered, and to treat people with love. So today's topic is how to parent children of blended families. And I'll just start talking. I don't need to really read what I wrote because I've lived it. I know what it's like. So what you need to do when you're parenting children from blended families is you need to understand this, is the children who have gone through a divorce, a mom and dad that no longer are together, or maybe they never came together to begin with, and then they end up having a step parent come into the picture. So the step parent that's coming into the picture needs to understand that children get hurt and they get wounded when a mother or father leaves the marriage, and or maybe they weren't even in the marriage to begin with. So they're going to have wounds. The child's going to have wounds, and they're going to hear demonic voices in their head from the demons that will cause them oftentimes to not want to listen, want to reject the parent, and then the step parent, and it could be the parent as well, the biological parent. So anyway, you've got to see them through Christ's eyes. You've got to love on them with Christ's love, which means grace, lots of grace, lots of tender, loving grace for these children. And the children could be whatever, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. They could be teenagers, which presents some additional issues and challenges because the teenagers will tend to want to rebel from parental authority. And if you are a step parent, especially if you're a step parent, and you try to lay down the law with them, that's not going to go well for you. It's not going to go well whatsoever. And I've seen those dynamics many, many times where you've got a person that comes into the situation, gets married, and then they end up expecting the children to be obedient to them. It's not going to work. So you need to be very much grace-oriented, especially in the first several months of establishing new relationships, because a lot of times in these cases the children didn't want the divorce to happen, and then it did. And again, divorce, I always say it takes two to make a marriage. You can have one person that gets delivered and the other person that refuses to. The other person that refuses to wants to control, manipulate, dominate, take out all their pain, all their demonicness that they're hearing voices from on their spouse, and then the spouse that's being abused doesn't want to be abused any longer. So oftentimes they'll stand up for themselves, and they may end the marriage themselves, they may separate and end it, or they may separate, and then that person that has more of the controlling Jezebel spirit will end the marriage in a divorce, and they will take an offense instead of looking in the mirror at themselves and getting freed. I'm gonna put my glasses on, the sun's coming out. So, again, I've had to walk through some things in my life in order to learn this. You can't really read a book and not experience and then be able to teach on this. So those who are out there trying to teach people about blended families and have never walked through it themselves, they don't understand. They can give all the advice in the world about how to behave, but if they've never walked through it, then it's really, 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 really hard. So that's why I know the Lord had me go through what I went through so I could actually see it firsthand. And I understood, and I could see it in stepchildren that have been hurt deeply by going through divorces that they didn't want. And so what you have to do as a spiritual, as a parent, is to bite your tongue a lot, and bite it and keep biting it, and stop trying to say things and do things to force a child that's already hurting, that's hearing a lot of demonic stuff in their head, and make them behave in ways that they can't. They're hurting deeply. They're hearing a lot of voices of the enemy. So therefore, you've got to build the relationship showing them that you love them. And in many cases, you may have to do some things that the child ultimately should do, but they're not yet in that space where they can't do it yet. So you have to build the relationship. And so therefore you may have to bite your tongue a lot. You may have to love on them the way that Christ would love on you if you were hurting. And again, most adults are hurting. They want to be loved. That's why they get into another relationship, hoping and praying that the person that they marry will love them unconditionally. But if they're not healed, then typically they will end up having more strife again. So that's why if you don't ever get healed and delivered, you're going to trigger. You're going to verbally be offended at the least little thing. You'll overreact. You'll go off on your spouse. And so you can imagine you've got a blended family where maybe both parties have children and they bring them together. What could be fireworks going on? I mean, it's no fun, having children that don't like each other, that don't get along, that didn't want to be in that position. So you may have, most situations aren't like the Brady Bunch. Most situations aren't like, I don't know, was the Partridge Family like that? I think that they were. But most situations aren't where they all get along and love each other. So you may have to, as a parent, have some extra love, extraordinary, supernatural love that the child will ultimately, hopefully feel as you are in the first initial stages of blending the family. And it may take months and months before the child finally will trust you that you do love them. In many cases, a step-parent doesn't. All they want is the spouse, and they want nothing to do with the children. And so that parent needs to grow up and mature spiritually. They need to love like Christ. They need to look at that child as a hurting, wounded child that's been out there on the battlefield, that's been wounded, that needs to come back and to be nursed back to health through a lot of love, a lot of gentleness. And so that child will be hearing a lot of demonic thoughts, and they'll probably speak words that will provoke you and try to cause more strife and more division. And then it's really hell to have to get along with a new spouse, and then yet at the same time have a lot of hell that's breaking loose in your family. So again, what you need to do is to see the children through Christ's eyes. Ask the Lord, show you. He'll tell you. I remember going through in my life as I had a couple of stepsons, and one of them was hurt very, very, very deeply. And it cost me a lot of money to have to pay for things that I shouldn't have had to have paid for. But the Lord told me to do it because he was hurting. He was hurting, and to spend a lot of time doing the things that he wanted to do, not what I wanted to do. Now, there's a lot of things that we wanted to do together. We both enjoyed sports and so forth. But it's so important to let the child to choose, like maybe if they were to stay at home with you and play a game, let the child choose what game do you want to play, or maybe what movie to watch, as long as it's not, horribly horrible. But to understand that you as a parent needs to be walking in more spiritual maturity, in which you may have to bite your tongue, and you may have to give and give and give and give to the child to be able to build the trust that they do love you, that they feel loved by you. Because in a lot of cases they've been hurting, and they've been hurting deeply. And if you end up trying to enforce yourself, your own will, your own pain upon them, there'll be much strife, a lot of yelling, screaming, horribleness, and then you'll end up self-sabotaging your new relationship. You'll self-sabotage a lot of things. And I'll say this too, is that there'll be the biological parent that will oftentimes want to get along with their new spouse, and then that new spouse, if they end up starting to take over and ordering around their stepchildren, that will drive the wedge between the stepchild and the biological parent. I've seen this a lot, where you've got a biological parent that starts to do exactly what their new spouse says to do, and then it causes the children to turn away from them. And then they have no relationship with their own biological children, and they hurt that deeply. So that's why it's you have to be very, very careful. You have to hear the Lord, listen to the Lord, and you're going to have to bite a lot of your tongue and not say a word. If you end up saying a word, all it takes is one sentence or a couple of sentences to speak something that ends up hurting that child and hurting them more deeply than they've ever been hurt. And then before you know it, you've ended up ruining your relationship with them. And it could take forever, if never, to bring that relationship back into a healthier relationship. So it's interesting. We've got 3 people out here with weed trimmers, and there's another one that's over here getting ready to start one up. So hopefully they will not encroach upon where I'm at, but I think this is just extremely important for everyone to understand, is that when you are parenting others' children, you need to learn and understand that they're all going to have wounds from the fallout of a breakup between their mom and dad, and you don't want to be increasing the amount of pain that they're already experiencing. So you need to bite your tongue and love like Christ, and to give of your time. You may have to give of your money. I know in my situation, I had to give of my money to stepchildren, and I didn't have any left over to really help my own kids. My own kids had to get jobs, and it was a good thing for them ultimately. But I couldn't tell my own kids, the reason why I can't buy this or that for you is because I'm trying to help out your stepbrothers and paying for things that they need. So the Lord may ask you to do some things that don't feel comfortable to do, and you may have to manage, the relationship with kid gloves, and to love people in such a way that you would never have imagined that you could do. It stretched me a lot. When I went through what I went through, I was able to see the kids, though, through the Lord's eyes, and how they were just hurting and bleeding. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to add to that pain. I'm going to try to make their life a little bit easier and more love, and bite my tongue. So I had to bite my tongue a lot, and a lot, and a lot, and a lot. And eventually, it paid dividends. To this day, still have good relationship with one of my stepchildren. So, and it's never wrong to love someone. It's never wrong to love someone like Christ. I wrote a book called Loving Like Christ, How to Love Hard to Love People. And I could never have written that had I not gone through what I went through, because it changed my perspective. I had no idea what it was like to love like Christ until I walked through the shoes. And then once I went through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had to bite my tongue a lot. And I was like, man, most people wouldn't do that. Most people would let the child have it. But then I knew you have to think ahead too. You have to think ahead. If you react or respond in a certain way, how is the child going to respond? So the child may be completely wrong in what they're doing, but they're doing it based out of their pain, out of their hurt. And if you try to enforce what may be right without love, they're not going to receive it. They're going to turn on you, they're going to hate you, and you will not have a good relationship. And this involves parents of their biological children, because most times people get remarried, they will have their own children, and then they will have their stepchildren. And as they grow up, you may have to intermingle. They may have to, go out to eat with each other and do things that they don't want to do. And then the children are pretty easy at explaining what they like and what they don't like, and they can end up ruining, an evening where you're trying to have peace between your stepchildren and or your husband or wife. So it's not easy. It's one of the hardest things to do out there, is to love like Christ people that are not directly related to you in a step family. So they're getting closer to me, and the sun is almost all the way out. So Yay. Ah. You never know what you're gonna get when you're doing a live in a park. It seems like in the summertime, when they do start resuming their mowing of grass, that seems like, I don't know, 40% of the time that I do a live at a park, they end up mowing the grass and trimming it. So, all right, let me see if I covered everything. So again, you just have to understand that you're going to have to love people and bite your tongue a lot. Only me, says Tina. In fact, I see about 3, they're probably hawks, I don't know if they're eagles, circling, flying around. I'm kind of up on top. They call this Cherokee Bluffs, and it's up on top where you can see for miles and miles around here. But anyways, when it comes to parenting, your own children, oftentimes we hurt our own children by the words that we say, by the actions that we take. Every situation is different and unique. And so if you're getting parenting advice from someone that's never had stepchildren and telling you what to do with your stepchildren, I wouldn't listen to them because they don't know, they don't understand it. So you really need to get advice from people that have walked in your shoes before you and they've understood what it takes. And oftentimes it's going to take a lot of love. A lot of love. A lot of grace for people that have been wounded. Again, the analogy that I like to use is that if a person goes out to battle in war and they get wounded, they come back and they're getting tended to recover from their wounds. Well, you can expect them to do the same things as a person that's not been wounded. So let's say you have children that have never been wounded, children that have had a father and mother that love them. They're not, they're going to be more expectations on those children to behave in healthy and good ways than those who have gone through where their parents have divorced. And so you need to tend to them, to love on them, give them more grace, and do not set your expectations as high as a person that's never been wounded, because there's going to be different dynamics going on. Those that have been wounded the worst, been hurt the deepest, are going to have a lot of demonic thoughts coming to them, and it may take them a year to recover if they're 15, 16 years of age, if they're teenagers. If they've been hurt so deeply, do not expect the same out of them, because all you're going to do is, if you try to make them do things that they should be doing, try to enforce rules, those demonic spirits will simply cause them to pull away from you and say, forget you. I want nothing to do with you. I want nothing to do with your God. I want nothing to do with your authority, because they've been hurt. So you've got to earn back that love, and you may have to bite your tongue. And it may take a while before they truly trust you, when they love you. And once they know that you love and care for them, then you can expect to raise up the level of responsibilities and things that they might do around the house, jobs, things like that. And it makes sense when you think about it. Otherwise, you're going to be striving, fighting, arguing every day, driving deeper wedges between you and the children, your own biological children, your stepchildren. And before you know it, you have no relationship at all. Yes, there's a time and a place when the child needs to take responsibility for some of the things that they've done. But understand that you better be listening to the Lord and God and doing what He says, instead of listening to other people that have never walked in your shoes. Or they may be parenting their own children in a loving way, but telling you to be harsh and controlling, because the demonic spirits in that person, that adult, may want you to ruin the relationship that you have with your own children. And you would have never guessed that. There's a lot of people that will love to give advice, free advice. Hey, they're starting to quiet down. Don't know if they're going to come over here or not. Anyway, but think about what the responses are going to be when you choose to say words to your children or stepchildren. If it's going to be harsh, without love, I can guarantee you they're going to respond in a negative way. They're not going to like and not want to be around you. I'm not saying to give them everything that they want and spoil them, but I'm saying to give them some grace, cut them some slack, and let the Lord show you how to parent from His perspective. Again, if a person comes in off the war and they've been hurt deeply, you can't expect them to carry out the same commands as someone that's not been hurt, who is able to function. Because a lot of these kids have been hurt so deeply they can barely get through a day. Oftentimes you could push them over the limit, cause them to say, I'm just going to give up. I'm going to drop out of school, start cutting on themselves, having suicidal thoughts. Steal, kill, and destroy is what the enemy wants to do to our children. So do not be an accomplice in that. Love them like Christ. Give them some grace. But do everything covered in love. There's a thing called tough love. And if you're tough with someone to the point where it turns them off completely from listening to you, you're not going to be able to get through to them on anything, on any level. Children who've taken through deliverance, inner healing and deliverance, and then they get their childlike innocence restored. Oftentimes you may have a child that's been shown pornography or been touched sexually when they're little and they've never told you. And that's why they behave that way. And you don't even know it. You have no clue. And they won't even tell you. Because oftentimes the people that have abused them tell them that if you tell anyone, I'll kill you. Or I'll hurt your mom or your dad or your siblings. So understand that hurting people need to be given love and care and be given some slack, some grace. You can imagine if you grew up and say something sexually happened to you, then you're going to be reliving that over and over again. You're going to have a lot of demonic stuff that are going to attack you. I know a lot of adults that I deal with in sessions, and they block out years from their childhood. Oftentimes it's because of sexual abuse done to them. So they don't remember. Some of them are like, I don't remember anything from age 4 to 7. I don't know why. Well, I can guarantee you it's something that's trauma related that could be sexual, and they didn't want to tell anybody. Maybe they were threatened not to tell anyone. And they'll block out a whole lot, a huge chunk of their childhood. So therefore you cannot expect that child to behave in a way similar to other children that have not been affected and not been hurt as deeply. So again, you could have 3 children in a family. One of them gets sexually touched or molested, raped, and the other 2 didn't. Well, I guarantee you the person that got sexually abused will not be in the same space as the other 2. The other 2 will respond more lovingly, typically, if you are if they have 2 loving parents, but more loving, more kind, more gentle, more fruit of the Spirit, more wanting to help, where the other person could be completely depressed, sad, suicidal, a mess, because they're hearing demonic thoughts all day long. So it's critical that we parent children that are our stepchildren in a way that they feel loved by, that you encourage them, that you lift them up. Because it's, enemy wants you to speak forth a lot of negative stuff, a lot of judgments, a lot of barking out orders, militaristic And what's that going to do? The child's going to not want to listen to you. It's going to turn away from you. Can oftentimes develop hatred for you. And then the parent's like, you need to love me, and then try to order them to love them. And the kid's like, are you kidding? I don't love you. You don't love me. And the parent won't humble themselves to apologize for some of their harsh treatment and so forth. So it's critical that we look at our children and our stepchildren through the eyes of Christ and look at the deeper spiritual stuff that they're going through so that we can truly love them. So I just pray, Heavenly Father, right now for all those who have blended families, all those who have stepchildren, Lord. I just pray, Lord, that you will show them right now their children and stepchildren from your perspective, that they're all hurting. There's none, that they may act like they're happy, but there's very, very few that are not hurting, that are hearing from the enemy, that are causing them to behave in ways that are not the way that they've normally behaved. So I thank you, Father God, right now. Just allow the people that are watching, Lord, to see them from your perspective and to put themselves in those kids' shoes and allow them, Lord, to love like Christ. Thank you, Father, for that. I praise you, Lord. Yes, Lord. There's so many people. I never thought I would ever. In fact, I remember, I'll say this, when I was growing up, when I was married and had my own 3 children, there were friends that they had, the children of those that I knew went through divorces. And I was hesitant to have them play with them or over at their houses because I knew that there's going to be some fallout from that. And then once I couldn't stop what was happening, then I could see my own children changing in negative ways. Couldn't have healthy control over the children. Couldn't, when they were over at my ex-wife's, I couldn't stop them from doing things that I would not have allowed to have happened at my home. So therefore they were getting the ability to do things, choose things, and do things that were not as godly and were not conducive to godly things. And then they end up getting hurt from it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Lord, my hands are tied. I can't be around them, 24 hours a day. So there were things that happened. So you have to understand that children are going to get hurt. The enemy wants them to get hurt. So, all right. Again, this Saturday, I will be in Savannah, Georgia at the Marriott Riverfront in Savannah, Georgia at 7 p.m. for a breakthrough event. And then April the 4th, Sunday morning, I'll be in Luray, Virginia on Easter Sunday at Cooter's Place. And then now May the 1st, I'll be in the Atlanta Marriott Perimeter Center at 7 p.m. That's a Saturday night at 7 p.m. All right, well, I'm going to let you go because I think they're getting ready to come even closer to trimming the grass around me. So, all righty. I will see you guys on YouTube and Facebook. All right, love ya. See ya. Bye-bye.